Hi, I'm Thomas Stephenson, and I'm a trauma survivor. On December 11th, 2014, I was involved in a fatal motor vehicle accident outside of Nashville, Tennessee, where I live. That day, I was traveling eastbound on Interstate 840 south of Nashville when someone in the oncoming lanes had a blowout, lost control, and came across the grass median and hit my truck head on. Upon impact, my truck began to flip. It flipped down the interstate about the length of a football field before it came to rest on its passenger side door. Upon impact as well, the fuel line in my truck burst, and so my truck was quickly engulfed in flames as it was flipping down the interstate. When the truck came to rest, I had hit my head pretty hard on my steering wheel during the accident, and so I was very foggy as to what was going on and what had happened. And so I was sitting there trying to piece together what had just happened because I didn't see the vehicle coming. I didn't see the accident happening. And so I was very confused and trying to understand where I was and what had happened. Thankfully, that day, I had a hero, Tony Cooper, who was traveling behind me on the interstate, saw the accident happen, and came to pull me out of my truck quickly before it was fully engulfed in flames. I was trapped in my truck during that time before Tony saved me because I had a pretty severe leg injury and foot injury that made me unable to get out of my truck at that time. As I was laying on the side of the road and on that cold December morning, um, I remember being confused about what had happened, not understanding what had occurred. And as I began talking to Tony, to the paramedics, to onlookers and state troopers as they arrived on the scene, the full extent of the accident came into view. They informed me what had happened, and unfortunately, they also informed me that the individual who had struck my vehicle didn't make it and lost his life at the scene of the accident. It became clear very quickly that this was a very serious accident. Um, at the time, I thought my injuries were relatively minor. I could visibly see that my leg and my foot were broken, but I figured I would just be transported to a local hospital by ambulance and be treated there and probably sent home the same day. Um, Thankfully, those that were around that day understood that my injuries were much more extensive than I recognized at the time. And so I was life flighted to Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville and was admitted to their trauma center. And it was really at that time that the full extent of my injuries came into more full view. I learned while I was there that not only had I sustained a serious fracture to my femur, but my left hip had also been damaged. I had crushed almost every bone in my left foot and ankle. I had broken multiple bones in my right foot and ankle. I broke my collarbone, my sternum. I sustained a TBI. And most seriously, my lumbar spine sustained burst fractures throughout it, which essentially means that my lumbar spine exploded due to the force of the impact, leaving me dangerously close to being paralyzed from the bone fragments that were floating around my spinal cord during that time. And so, very quickly that day, I went into surgery, a long 8-hour spinal surgery to fuse my spinal column and put my back together so that I could be stabilized to prepare me for the long recovery I had ahead, but also the many surgeries that were to come. I would spend about the next 2 months in the hospital at Vanderbilt Trauma Center, but then also at the Stallworth Rehabilitation Hospital attached to Vanderbilt. I underwent a number of surgeries on my back, on my leg, on my feet to begin to get those in the place that they needed to be so I could heal. This time in the hospital was very difficult. Um, it was extremely painful. Um, I endured a level of pain while I was in the hospital that I didn't know you could feel. I had never felt that level of pain before, and I don't think most people can comprehend it unless you've been in a situation like that. And so it was a daily battle of just dealing with the physical pain that I was dealing with. Just pain, being able to move, and pain and not being able to move much of my body at that time. So there was the physical pain, but there was certainly the emotional toll of what had happened. There was the emotional toll of the accident itself. I was constantly reliving what had happened, remembering the things I heard, the things I smelled, the things I saw during that, and often wondering why this had happened to me. I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't done anything to deserve this. And so I was constantly asking myself, why me? And I was also asking myself, why had I survived? The gentleman who struck my vehicle that lost his life that day had a family, he had a wife, he had kids. I was a 21-year-old college student at the time, and so from my perspective, he had a lot more to live for at that point than I did. And so that was another piece of the emotional journey I was dealing with was survivor's guilt of why had I survived and he did not. I was surrounded by great friends and family at this time in the hospital, but they truly couldn't understand the emotional and mental challenges that I was dealing with at this time. I had always been active and athletic when I was younger. I was at the height of my independence at my senior year in college at this time. And so to have all that taken away from you in an instant through something coincidental was very difficult to deal with because I felt as if my identity had been taken away from me, and there was nothing I could do to fix that and to get it back. And I was fearful for what my life was going to look like in the future. I was being told by the doctors and caregivers around me of the serious challenges that I would deal with for the rest of my life as a result of this accident. And that was really challenging to deal with at that time. My family was really excited about me coming home. I was excited about coming home, but secretly I was really scared. And I think most trauma survivors feel that way. As long as I was in the hospital, I was cared for around the clock. I knew I was safe. I didn't have to deal with the responsibilities and stresses of daily life while dealing with what I was going through in that time, as long as I was in a hospital bed. But going home meant new challenges. It meant uncertainty of what my life was going to look like. Most people around me went back to school and work, and I was left trying to figure out how I was going to regain some sense of normalcy in my life. Going home was extremely difficult. That was probably the toughest part of my recovery. Although the physical pain had somewhat subsided, the emotional toll was even greater. Everyone around me was trying to relate to me and tell me it was going to be okay, encourage me. And while I appreciated their words and I knew that they were meant uh, with a good heart, I knew that they didn't know what they were talking about. They couldn't truly empathize with where I was. Um, and I also couldn't express to them the emotional challenges I was dealing with and trying to regain my identity, feeling as if I had lost that identity, dealing with survivor's guilt, dealing with the nightmares and dreams of that accident every single day. There were things that were invisible to others at the time that were the heaviest on me, and no one could help me deal with those except myself. But the one thing that changed my perspective and changed my attitude is when I truly talked to someone who knew what I was going through, to someone who had been in a horrible accident, had suffered significant trauma in their life. When I talked to someone who had been in a serious car accident or any other type of traumatic event that had left them disabled for a period of time, there's a unique bond there that you can't get with anyone else. You can talk about the things that you can't talk about with your family or the closest people to you. And the bond that you have with someone else who suffered traumatic injury is unlike any other that I've experienced. It was almost 10 years after my accident that I decided to become a peer mentor through TandemStride. And I wanted to do this because I've always wanted to give back and to provide hope and support to other people who were in the situation that I was in a number of years ago. to be able to provide them the context from someone who has had a decade to recover, to realize that while that incident, that accident that you may have been involved in, is a defining moment in your life, it doesn't define who you are. And that there is a great life to live after your recovery journey has had time to complete. So I wanted to give back to provide that to others, and provide that perspective that comes from just years of experience of recovering from a traumatic accident. But truthfully, I also wanted to do it for myself. There are things that I have worked through over the last decade since my accident that I want to be able to share with others. And I want to be able to share with survivors the things I wish I had known in the weeks and days after discharge from the hospital. Those are some of the most challenging times, if not the most challenging times in your recovery journey. And that's often when you feel the most alone as a survivor, because oftentimes it's that point in your recovery journey when you are alone for the first time. You don't have doctors and nurses around you. You don't have people coming in and out of your room constantly. Even if you have a good support system around you and a good community around you, there are going to be times when you're alone at home after your accident. For someone who's never had a peer mentor before, um, I would say that for the survivor, it's like being able to hit fast forward on your recovery and your life to see what your life is going to look like. Because in that moment as a survivor, shortly before discharge or after discharge, it can be a very dark, uncertain time. And so someone being able to provide certainty to you that has walked in your shoes is incredibly powerful. If I could share one or two things with a trauma survivor that's beginning their recovery journey, one, I would tell them that you're going to be able to do far more than you think you're going to be able to. It may take time, it may be difficult, it may be challenging, it may be painful, but you're going to be able to do more than you think you'll be able to do. The other thing that I would say to survivors is um, it is very easy to get down about what has happened to you. It's very easy to become frustrated or angry. But what I share with survivors often is that, this unique community of trauma survivors, we're all superheroes in one form or fashion. We have all endured something incredibly difficult that most people around us can't relate to and don't understand. Our pain tolerances are higher than everybody else's. Our emotional and mental tolerances are higher than everyone else around us. And so the positive side of these things that have happened to you allow you to find another gear in your life, to be able to do things you never thought you could do, and to find yourself stronger than you ever thought you could be.